Hello, welcome back to
Yo,
Sherrod. Welcome to Jimmy Toscano. Just the three of us here tonight, and we are doing what I've been itching for, Jimmy, and you've been dreading: an Olympic
Oh,
post-game show.
oh
no,
boy.
Olympic post game exhibition show. That's
Yes.
the dreadful part. I'm all about the
I
Olympics, but I just can't get too high or low about these games yet.
I thought Bobby was just joking about the Olympic exhibition post game shows. I didn't think this was a reality based
He's
idea, but
he's
here we
spoken
are.
into
Have you been
existence.
excited for these games, Sherrod?
No, I have not. I haven't. And in fact, for me, Team USA losing to Nigeria was like one of the best things that could have happened for everyone
The
involved.
interest
Team
factor.
US Well, the interest factor is greater now. Team USA, they needed to get smacked upside the head to come back to earth and understand that you can't just roll out of bed, meet 5 guys at the park or 12 guys at the park and just beat the snot out of teams. It doesn't work that way anymore. The,
Right.
the game is so global now where you have to have a certain amount of cohesion. And we saw that, against, Argentina, where they clearly were more on the same page than we saw in the previous 2 games. And that was good to see. But the exhibition games now, they've been to the point where you actually have some developing storylines going into the Olympics that you didn't have before. That, frankly, I think, to your point, Jimmy, I think more people will watch these games now because there are, frankly, teams that you want to find out more about. You want to find out if this Nigeria team, are they legit? Is Team USA, was this the wake-up call that they needed? This Argentina team, this is not Manu Ginobili's Argentina
I
team that
know.
we know and love.
It's
They
Luis
they
Scolas though.
suck.
Yeah.
It's Luis Scolas' team, man. 41 years
and
old. I
that's
can't believe
and
it.
that's part of the problem. It's his team.
Dude, he looks damn
That's
good. He looks damn good.
it's
He
just
looks,
the other
41.
11.
he looks good, but he doesn't look good,
Well,
if
he
you know
can't
what I
go. Listen,
mean.
he
No,
shouldn't be
no,
covering
Jimmy.
Durant.
This is what it is, Jimmy. He looks good. For a 41-year-old
Yeah.
guy playing
He looks
professional
damn good. He
basketball.
looks damn good for a 41. I mean,
Isn't this something? Skull
If
at
this were
41, Paul Gasol is going to be leading Spain at 40. This is like, I think the USA needs, who could they
a
pull
40
out
and
of
over league,
retirement here?
these Euros, man, they live right. They go on holiday. They extend their lives, and they could. Scola could probably be in the next Olympics after this one. Like,
stop,
Let's put
hey,
stop.
Kevin Garnett out there. They need some
why
rim
Let's
not?
bring Kevin
protection.
Garnett. Let's get Paul
Scare him a
Pierce.
little
Let's
bit.
get Ray Allen.
I used to think
Shoot, why don't we
Scola.
just roll out Bill Russell while we're at it? Hell, we'll
I
just bring
tried.
back
I tried
everyone
like
else.
I tried like hell to get Scola on the Celtics. It's like that pick and pop big that they could have used back in the day. He was like automatic. He always played well against the Celtics, but they never they just never made it happen. They could never match up, I guess. But you know,
Hey,
maybe a veteran minimum deal now after what I saw tonight.
Stop, Jimmy. Stop.
All right,
Just
fine.
stop.
so yeah, developing stories there. I'm following this developing story behind Sherrod. Is that a Luigi Datome jersey?
Please,
Absolutely. That's my
please,
guy.
please. I hope
That's
it
my
is.
guy.
I've been
Oh,
That's my
eyeing that
guy.
for weeks now.
That's my guy, man.
you just
I
put
he
Bobby's
was
jersey in a body bag, dude.
I thought that was
he
like
was one of,
a play on my jersey up here. I'm like, come on,
no.
you got to bring it
That's
down to
my
the Datome.
guy, man. I loved him when he was in Boston. I loved him when he was in Detroit. The guy had about maybe a 6 centimeter vertical, but I didn't care because when he released, I always felt it was going to go in.
I
Dude,
love that
Always felt it was
addition
going
on
to.
the team.
Brad loved him too. Wait, Sherrod, I'm sorry. There's got to be like a backstory to this here. I mean, out of all the players you've covered in your career, you have a Datome jersey hanging up of every. I mean, I can't imagine that's true.
Listen, you can easily find a Kevin Garnett, Kyrie Irving, Paul Pierce, but
Sure, Rasheed Wallace.
this this is a keeper.
Is that
This
hard
is
to
one that
find?
you no.
Yeah.
No, because at the time I got it, it was very readily available.
I can see that.
I've had it for a while. So
Okay.
no,
All right. I'm gonna have to
that's my
find it
guy,
too.
man.
So
Like, for example, a jersey that I'm going to be getting at some point. I'm going to get a Kevin Herter jersey from Atlanta because a lot that
Okay.
again he's going to be. I have this collection of guys that I want their jerseys because they represent a unique skill set at a unique time that most people overlook. Like Datome can shoot the hell out the ball,
He could.
but you're not going to remember that.
Brad loved
Herter,
him.
I think, he should love him. I love him. Everyone loves Gigi.
I actually still
Great
follow
nickname.
Gigi on the gram, and he's doing well over there overseas.
He is doing well.
Still winning games and
He's
doing his
a-
thing.
We need
He's
to
an
get him on a
icon in
Garden
Europe.
Report one of these days.
There you
Yeah,
go,
I've
Bobby.
seen him
That's
on
some
some
homework
shows.
for you, Bobby.
That would be some good guess. We got a lot of potential people over the next couple of weeks here because it's gonna be a little slow once these finals end. You know, we do have the Olympics here the next few weeks. Keeping an eye out for obviously the big news out of tonight in the blowout is Jayson Tatum not playing, late scratch with the knee soreness.
Wah, wah.
Probably not much. I saw him. The only thing I saw at the Australia game that signaled, well, there were two things that signaled to me that something might not be right there. Those backline cuts that he allowed to end that game, just stuck in the mud. I couldn't believe how bad he looked defensively at the end of that game. And it looked actually coming out of the tunnel to start the game like he might have been a little sore, but it looked like the groin area or something to me. I didn't see any knee soreness during the game. So we'll wait and see. They've been slow to come out to those pressers, so nothing's out there yet. But if this is something that could potentially keep him out for a little bit here, is this the kind of thing you would think would shut him down, Sherrod, or would he just kind of set out these exhibitions and then jump in those real games?
Well, I think this is a situation where having your head coach be there with you is a very good thing, because I think if there is any hint that Tatum isn't going to be right and that this is something that could linger, you better believe Mr. Udoka is going to be no more games for you, JT. Sit down, do what I'm doing, watch the games, because your value, literally your value, is so much greater once we get past this Olympics than it is in this moment. And I think Jayson Tatum, again, he's a smart enough guy to know that he has to be physically ready to roll when the Celtics season, not only because of who he is and his stature with the team, but your right-hand man, JB, may not be ready to go from day one. And if that's the case, your impact is going to be needed even more so than it already is. So I expect him, if there's any inkling that this thing might be more than just a little soreness, that they're going to shut him down.
Man, I hope that it's. I mean, obviously, I hope that it's minor, but this is the worst thing you want to hear.
It is
like knee soreness. I hate hearing knee soreness. Give me something upper body, give me like whatever, but don't tell me right knee soreness. I have nightmares. I think Celtics fans have nightmares about right and left knee soreness with the history of this team, going back to, KG and all those players, man. And man, to have something, if something really was tweaked and for it to get worse, like overseas and all this crap, that is why some people, and they were the minority, but there were some people that just didn't want.
That's
Jayson
what I'm
Tatum
saying.
go.
Where's Nick? This is Nick's big take. He's not here.
I thought he would have begged to come on tonight just to
Oh
rub
my
it in our
Lord,
faces.
especially with the 0-2 start.
Yeah.
What's even the upside here? You even gonna get gold? I'm just I'll try to do my best, Nick, tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good start. That's a good start.
Yeah. Let's not, jump to conclusions just yet. But obviously, and I like Sherrod's point. Your head coach is there, and he's probably making sure that you're taking extra precautions. And maybe it's barely sore at all. Maybe they just didn't want him to go back to back. I mean, they just played yesterday, and what's the point in doing that anyways? Playing back to back.
That is a good point.
USA games.
Doing back to back.
Why the hell are we doing
USA training camp?
Like, this is ridiculous, really. I mean, come on.
I'm trying to understand the logic
the
behind
IOC.
Like, we didn't do enough back to backs over the last 365 days where we need to do back to back exhibition Olympic games. Really?
So I saw you tweeting, Sherrod, because everybody was just, the Nigeria game came and went. It's like, oh, that was weird. And then all of a sudden you go through the Australia game and they lose 2 straight. And it's like, all right, something's happening here. They might still win gold. They probably will. They're still pretty heavy favorites to do so. But something's up with this team. You heard Joe Varden and Pop get into it yesterday over the margin of victories. And Varden had a point that this team, they win gold medal games by 30. And I'm all for having some more competitive games. The last 2 games were closer than any NBA Finals game we've watched so far. So I've enjoyed those. But something is just off with this group. And I know they're off playoff runs and they don't have glue guys and stuff like that, but they still have the best shooters on the planet and the best scorers on the planet here.
Yeah, but over the course of not one but two truncated seasons, to go from that to right to Olympic play with very little downtime in between, you're not going to be at your peak performance level. You are not, and then let's not ignore the fact that they've had what now 3 games and what maybe 6 days together, something ridiculous like that. You're not going to have chemistry. You're not going to have cohesion. Throw in the fact that you have had back-to-back truncated seasons, which have frankly put more mileage on those wheels than normally they're used to in a 2-year, 2-season period. You're going to take some time to get into a flow, to get into a rhythm, to figure out how to not just play with each other, but how to win with each other. I mean, you look at the end of that Nigeria game. I mean, it was pathetic how they
That
seemed
play
to have
call,
no
oh
clue
Lord.
down the. I mean, well, here's the both of the losses. I had major problems with how they executed down the stretch against Nigeria. I felt that they had no idea what they wanted to do in those closing moments, who to go to, what type of plays to call for guys to get open, and thus they screwed that up. Against Australia, with about maybe 2.5 minutes to play, you're down by I think it was like 5, and they just started jacking threes rather than going and attacking that empty ass thing we call the paint. There was no one there. Why would you not beat your man off the dribble, get a bucket, actually get a stop defensively, get enough? There was so much time that they could have easily attacked, got an easy deuce, or get fouled, go to the free throw line, and get back, play defense, and win that game. But they tried to take the easy route. You know what they remind me of? They reminded me of what happens when you're playing a pickup game and the street lights come on, and you know this is probably your last game. You're not trying to do the things to win. You're just trying to get the hell out of there. So that's when you're just jacking threes, just for the sake of jacking threes. And to me, that pissed me off. I was more upset about the Australia loss than the Nigeria one, because Nigeria, I thought, played maybe the best game that they could possibly play. 23s, that just doesn't happen. Australia was a very winnable game that they absolutely choked away because they did not play with the kind of focus and effort down the stretch. They took the cool breeze route, jacking threes rather than attacking and finishing at the rim.
That three is the great equalizer. It really is. And Australia didn't explode from three, but they were creating the quality looks out there and then just walking to the basket. There are a roster issues here with this USA team, and that's why I'm not completely ruling out the chance that they lose. I'm shocked by how little interior presence they have, even with Bam out there this time, and the point guard facilitating role on this roster is basically non-existent. And you had a pool of 57 players. You couldn't find a role point guard. You couldn't get Marcus Smart up in there, defend some guys on the wing. You couldn't get a bevy of centers out there, Jared Allen, guys like that, interior presence.
They went with the big names. They didn't go for fit.
Kevin Love as a choice here was just astonishing. You see the way this guy looks. And Pop opening training camp saying, oh, we got to get him back into form. What kind of time is this to get a guy back into form late in his career?
Well, let's be honest and real, though. Form. This is who he is. He's exactly who we thought he was. And as far as getting him in shape and form and all that talk, he played for freaking the Cavaliers. It's not like it's not like he's coming off like this extended postseason where his body is trying to just recuperate from a long. Hell, you've been out since then. Well, you've been off longer than anyone, basically.
That was a shock.
What's Pop saying that Love just took the last month? He's just been chilling. Yeah, I guess
a lot of these guys have. Varden, I was laughing my ass off reading Varden's piece about this. He was saying that they looked like they came from Dunkin' Donuts with hands on their knees, huffing and puffing.
Wow.
And, it was kind of deserved. Shot. Well, yeah.
Ricochet shot at Dunkin's, by the way.
These guys look gassed. The defense has been disgraceful in 2 of these games. I'm just shocked that people are saying, oh, it's just an exhibition. They've played 56 exhibitions since the Dream Team and have lost 2 before this. Then they come out and lose 2 to start this tournament. Obviously, that's going to set off panic alarms. You're not just not blowing out teams anymore. You're losing to teams.
Right.
And, you include the 3-ball and other NBA players on other teams. We're talking about Precious Achua and Keza Apala and, Gabe Vincent, these types off NBA benches. Yeah, obviously that's going to close the gap a little bit here, but this is self-inflicted by America here. And, maybe Nick does have a little bit of a point here that some of these guys just aren't physically in the best spot to be performing at the highest level right now. I mean, getting on a plane to Japan is not going to help this group.
No, it's not going to help them. And frankly, they got to care about winning. I mean,
That's
defense
the
is
big
all
thing,
about
right?
effort, and I don't get the feeling that. And again, it's exhibition play, so that there's no way you can really fully kind of gauge where they're at in that regard. But just when the game gets tight, even in exhibition games, you're trying to win. You are trying to do what you can to get the victory, and I just don't see that level of engagement with these guys because again, for them, they remind me so much of so many teams that are near and dear to our hearts who just think, oh, we'll just wait till the
That's
Olympics
who
to
you
kind of
remind
turn it
me
Doesn't
on
of.
this
and flip the
team?
switch.
I was gonna
This is
get to
so.
that.
Here's the switch.
This is such a Celtics 2020 2021 Olympic team we're seeing.
Oh my lord! It
God, I hope
just
not.
translated completely over. I feel like I'm watching the same exact team.
And the other
It
thing,
is.
Bobby, I think you wrote about this. Correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe you linked to it in your piece that's up on CelticsBlog.com. I'll give you a little plug there.
Way to throw the bounce pass, Jimmy
Thank
Yeah,
Toscano.
you.
that's
Well
right. See,
done.
teamwork right there. They're not like they're so what guys like Tatum, for example, are used to is getting those touch foul calls, those ticky tack fouls, the continuation calls, and they're not getting them. It's a much more physical
Isn't that
style of
something to
play,
see?
and I think that's definitely one of the adjustments that they have to make now to this international style of game, which I'm all for. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say
I like
we
it. I
hate the
like the way they
touch.
officiate.
Yeah, absolutely. Let the boys play. Like enough of this, leaning into the shot and looking for the continuation and all this crap. Like just you're out there to to win the game, play hard, and get dirty out there if you have to. But stop looking over to the refs. Just you should be able to beat any team out there based on talent. Basketball is a game about talent at the end of the day, for the most part in the NBA at least. And you can't argue the fact that this is the most talented team in this competition, and they just have to play a little bit more together. And again, it sounds like a Celtics post game show. Get out of one player mode and start moving the ball and start integrating other players into these plays here and just play the game. Just play the game of basketball, and you should be good.
It's just frustrating watching these last really all three exhibition games because it wouldn't be so bad if you felt that the U.S. talent-wise just wasn't quite where it's been in past years. If maybe they had dropped down a notch or two in terms of overall talent, then you say, oh, well, you know what? This is what happens when you don't bring your best players out there. But you got freaking Kevin Durant. You got
Right.
freaking Jayson Tatum. You got like
Lillard.
if you've got Lillard, you've got like guys with like a total of like 40, 50, 60 all-star appearances
Yeah.
to their collectively. You've got talent. But do you have a team? There is a difference. And I think when you look at them, you look at a team like Nigeria, which is a team. That's where the
Australia,
Olympics is
the
all
Aussies.
exactly. Teams typically beat
I
talent
love
when it
that
comes to the
Aussie
Olympics.
team.
They're fun to watch. They're fun to watch.
Yeah.
Joe
And
Ingles unleashed
scrap.
when he's on the ball in that
Joe,
game.
he's
NBA
low key.
players, but they scrap.
Ingles is one of my favorite players to watch because
Me
he
too.
genuinely looks like he's having fun out there. You'll see him talking with other guys on the other team. You'll see him, if he makes a bad play, he'll just like literally make fun of himself. And when he makes a good play, he'll jokingly point to you and just kind of like, you do realize I just like dropped like back-to-back threes on you and you still won't guard me? He's got that type of facial expressions, and he's just an enjoyable player to watch. And that team is like that. But again, they play as a team, not as talented individuals. The USA could take notes from that.
He genuinely looks like the guy at the local YMCA who's just
Yes.
running the show, but you would never really expect it until you get out there. Like,
Him and Jokic.
I'll guard him, and then all of a sudden he just takes you to the woodshed. And like that's how they played. And honestly, another guy we haven't mentioned yet, but we might be talking about this offseason is Patty Mills.
Yes.
I mean, Patty Mills crossed the hell out of Durant last night. I think it was Durant.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
He blew by him, and he did get blocked by Draymond, which kind of ruined the highlight. But man,
the blow by was impressive.
Right by him. And tell you what, Patty Mills, he's been doing it for years, and I'm sure Greg Popovich has seen that, on the right side of things. But he got to see it.
So is Udoka.
Yeah, that's a good point. Absolutely. So that's a player that's hitting the free agent market and isn't going to command a ton of money, but is certainly a player that can contribute in more ways than one. He's offensive burst. He's energetic. He's athletic. He scraps. He fights. Bobby, is that what you were scouring for that whole time, man?
Yeah.
That graphic?
22 in this one, right? 30 in that 2019 game. I mean, Australia
Yep.
now has 2 wins in a row over the U.S. going back to that tournament, another exhibition. You got to like what this guy brings to the table, especially if he's willing to come here on a fairly cheap 1-year deal. Udoka connection possibly drives him here. The problem with him is I don't think he's as much of a facilitator.
Right.
He's kind of a guy who's going to go
He's
out there
not.
off the bench and seek his shot, which is fine if he's going to come here on $2 million deal or something like that. But it doesn't solve their biggest problem.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And that's really the kind of the blessing and burden that you have when you go after a guy like Patty, because again, he's such a just an absolute. He's from the Jamal Crawford school of scoring, where Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams, those type of guys that come into the game, get you
Professional
buckets, that
scores.
are not exactly. They're not going to defend. They're not locking anybody up. They're not expecting to play 30, 35 minutes. They're just going to play their 10, 15, 20 minutes, get you 10, 12 points, go back to the bench, call it a day. And that's fine. But to your point, how much is this going to cost you? And what does this do for your overall team chemistry, your team's ability to be
Right.
better than they were this past season? I mean, if you bring in a guy like that who's 32 years old, you're not so much worried about injuries and stuff like that, because again, he's an older player, but it's not like he's got a ton of worn out tires on him. It's not like he's a 30, 35 minute per game or 30, a guy that plays extensive minutes. That's not who he is. He's a short burst of energy and buckets. And you can use that if you're the Celtics, but you still haven't, to Bobby's point, you still haven't addressed, I think one of your biggest issues is who is going to be your primary facilitator. Because again, Team USA is a team of talent, but they don't look like a team. And part of that is that they don't have a legitimate, bona fide facilitator.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree. I mean, the last thing you want to do is sign Patty Mills and not let him be Patty Mills, because that's like what happened with Kemba Walker. You sign Kemba Walker, you're like, well, Kemba Walker, he doesn't fit the team. He needs to pass more. He needs to get you all these assists. It's like, that's not who
That's
Kemba
not what
Walker
he do.
is. He's not going to do that.
That was
It
infuriating.
was like the worst times that you could possibly have. And like, again, it's not the case with Patty Mills. I mean, you have a lesser version of that in Peyton Pritchard right now. So again, what's having two guys come off the bench that do the same thing? It doesn't really make much sense. Now it's partially the Celtics' problem that they don't have that starting Cal. If they had that player, then Patty Mills would be perfect for this team. But he can't be signed to be that player. So you're right. It might not be the right fit. But man, it would be. I mean, talk about a great role player to have, and a guy that any team he joins, assuming that he's joining a playoff team, that's a guy that can make you a lot better. I mean, right off the bat there, if he's filling an offensive role for you coming off the bench, I mean, that's so many teams need that. So many teams need that.
It feels like it's
going
to be I had to throw that out there. It feels like it's going to be this guy here, Mills. Just, I wouldn't have overrated the Udoka thing as much if he didn't have assistants coming over at this point. So certainly you would think if he has the connections with some of these players who want to come to a winning situation for cheap. I know Jared Weiss has called this kind of the Jeff Teague. I don't want to put that on Mills. I don't want to do that to Mills here, but I think he's going to bring a little more to the table than Teague would. But
yeah.
It is kind of a value comparison. A guy like T.J. McConnell, who we've kicked around a little bit, who I think is really the other option here if they have the full mid-level exception at their disposal, would be more impactful all around. This is a guy who led the NBA in steals last year, high-level assist issue. He had a 17-assist game last year, someone who can connect the dots a little bit more here. He doesn't have the scoring and shooting burst that Mills does here, so you almost wish you could combine these guys in the one player, get the best of both worlds here, but they're probably gonna have to pick and choose between one of these guys.
Yeah, and I think McConnell fills that distributor role. But again, if you're using him in a role player position, again, like you have the Peyton Pritchard factor too. So I don't know. I mean, there's no right answer, but I think what McConnell does is what this Celtics team needs more than what Patty Mills does. Even though they do need scoring, you don't know what's going on with Fournier and all this other stuff. So I mean, points got to come from somewhere, and this Celtics bench from last season certainly was not, gangbusters coming off the bench and hitting, scoring 20 in your face. So it's tough, like you said, Bobby. I mean, they both things they do very well, but they don't do much of the other thing.
What do you think the market will be for McConnell, Sherrod?
I think it'll be pretty robust. I mean, because he's a guy that's in that what I consider that sweet spot in terms of experience and just kind of knowing what you're getting. He's not going to be a guy that will be in your starting lineup and you're competing for a championship. He's not that type of player. But
Right.
if you're looking for someone to come off your bench to give you solid minutes, not spectacular, but solid minutes as a facilitator and somewhat adequate defender, someone who's going to make more positive moments, have more positive moments than negative ones, he's a good fit. Now, it always comes back to price. Is this guy a full mid-level value guy? Is this someone that you can get for less than that? I'm not sure what his value is, because
Got to
the
be
things
lower.
that he does, well, the things that he does well are not necessarily things that teams covet, like playmaking, which all teams talk about. We need guys who can make plays. But then you don't want to pay for it because he's only 5'10" or maybe 6 feet or something ridiculously low like that in terms of his physical size. So teams don't want to pay for guys with that particular skill set. But McConnell, again, I think for him, and what we're talking about, we're not talking about the Celtics adding the guy with the most talent. We're talking about them adding the guy that's the best fit. And McConnell, I think from a money standpoint, from a talent standpoint, from a fitting standpoint, he makes a lot more sense than Patty Mills, who I think Patty Mills is a better scorer, obviously.
Sure.
I think Patty he's very good at that. But if you're talking about all the different elements and aspects that you need to be as a basketball player, I give McConnell the slight edge over a guy like Patty Mills.
Yeah, it's just whether or not you want to hard cap yourself with a signing like that. I mean, if you cross that $6 million line, you're really stuck from a team building perspective, and it's probably not worth doing that to sign a guy like McConnell. Like you said, he's not going to swing the roster one way or another, but he does address that biggest need here. And there's still that question here of whether Marcus Smart comes back into the fold, and we've been kicking that around forever here. What's going to finally be his last day with the Celtics? Is he just going to be here forever? Are they going to extend him and he'll be here till 2026? That's an option this offseason. I'm excited to see him get the reins. I have another piece coming up for Celtics blog tomorrow about this. I'm excited to see him get a chance to be the everyday point guard on this team, because I think he has it in him. He's a great passer. I love his vision. You look at his stats in terms of spreading the ball out and what guys shoot when he passes to them. It's pretty strong last year. I'll actually pull those up in a minute here. But I'm okay with him being the starting point guard last year. I know that was an aspect of Gary Washburn's piece, and we can get into that a little bit here too. Things Tatum said about the team and, his reaction to Udoka, different stuff that he got into with Washburn out there. It feels like Washburn has a good sense that Smart will be back with this team next year. And I don't think that's a huge surprise, because I know of my dreams Kyle Lowry ultimately, but I don't think there'll be anything like that out there this offseason.
Well, the thing that Marcus Smart, I think, reminds me of, and there's a few guys in the league like this, the value that they have for the team they're with is greater than their value for any other team out there. Marcus Smart is exactly what the Celtics need. He's exactly what fits in well with them going forward. The biggest problem that we notice with this team is that they don't have they don't augment his game with a playmaker, a legitimate playmaker. Peyton Pritchard has shown signs of that. My one disappointment was that Peyton didn't get a chance to play more when Kemba was out. I thought that was a huge missed opportunity for the Celtics to develop a guy that they could maybe make a judgment sooner rather than later on as to whether he can be a playmaker for your team, which is something that you
don't
need.
know. Maybe we'll learn a little more in Summer League, but you really don't know with the full team after last year somehow.
Right. And when you speak of Summer League, the guy that everyone is going to be watching is Yam Madar to see what he's going to do.
Drink.
Yes, Jimmy.
Everybody drink. We got our first Yam Madar reference of the show.
Exactly. Yam Madar. Keep it up, Jimmy. Go on.
Is it Yam or Yam? Somebody corrected me.
I let us roll with Yam for a full show, but it's Yam.
It's probably Yam. Is it Yam?
I think I'm just gonna. I kind of like Yam. Like
he's a basketball player. How are you not gonna go with Yam? I mean, you're not gonna mispronounce a guy's name, but Yam would be a great name.
No disrespect, but Yam is just awesome.
Yes. Bad news on Yam. They might have to buy out his contract there or something. There was some sort of article in Hebrew. I couldn't decipher it completely, but I guess he's kind of locked into that contract out there.
Before we jump into him, I just want to follow up to Sherrod's points, and I agree with a lot.
Smart.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Sherrod said. I think I think Smart is the best point guard that they could probably acquire going into next season without, something crazy
Yeah.
drastic happening. However, that being said, I think that he's going to need to adjust his game just a bit. And what I mean by that is he needs to focus on being the distributor, being that passer that we've seen in flashes, and we know how good of a passer he can be. But we also know that he can be kind of silly at times with the ball and do some stupid things out there, get too aggressive, run into traffic, turn the ball over, take fast shots and hurried shots in transition. And he needs to really work on that if he can reach that potential of being the best point guard that the Celtics could acquire. And honestly, if he's cool with that role and cool with being that defense and distributor guy, then yeah, he's literally exactly what the Celtics team needs. They need a guy who can play solid defense and who can get the ball to Tatum and Brown and to Rob Williams. If you can do those three things, you're going to be 5 to 6 wins better just on that alone, just from playing your role better. But the 8 3-pointers and 6 turnovers, like those types of games, those can't happen because that's not winning. That's not a winning formula. Absolutely not. So if he can work on that, if he's cool with that role, and the other thing is that I left out, Tatum and Brown also need, to be fair, they need to give him the respect that he's earned and that he deserves. They need to all sort of respect each other and play into each other's strengths. They can't get into hero mode.
Right, but that's a lot easier said than done with those
I know.
guys because they all feel as though they can put the team on their back and carry them. The thing about Smart, I think this year that we're going to see more than we've seen in past years is I think he's going to get back to doing the things that have kind of established his role, his niche, the value that he has set throughout this league because it's a contract year. And Marcus Smart doesn't have to put up X number of stats to really increase his value. What he has to do is he has to set a defensive tone, and those guys have to follow. To me, that didn't happen enough last year. I thought Marcus Smart had moments where his defense was on a level, and the rest of the guys were about 5, 6, 7 levels behind him. Yeah. And you didn't feel as though that they were trying to make an effort to catch up with him. And if you're Marcus Smart and you know you're a great defender and you've proven that time and time again, and you look around and nothing but crickets when you talk about, hey guys, let's D up, and it's like
can't do it yourself. No one can't play. Yeah,
you can't. And so to me, I think this season is going to be a year of redemption for all of those guys. I think they're going to, Marcus, I think he will have an opportunity to lead this team and hopefully have guys who will follow that lead. You can still follow Marcus's lead and still be an elite player if you're Jayson Tatum, if you're Jaylen Brown, but you've got to play better team as a collective and not go into hero ball and thinking that you can put the team on your back by yourself and get it done. Because we've seen that movie and it sucks. It sucks.
It's a horror movie, and I hate horror movies.
The good news for
Jimmy,
Smart,
don't be scared.
Listen. Give me a nice rom-com. Give me an action thriller, but I'm cool without Chucky and all that stuff. That's a good name for Marcus Smart, Chucky. When he's chucking threes, we're gonna call. You don't want Marcus Smart to go into Chucky mode. That's what I'm saying right there.
I'm not trying to watch Saw or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to watch Saw, man. Not trying to watch Saw.
So there's 3 good things going for Smart here. Last year, he actually played point guard about 50% of the time just because of how much Walker was out. Walker barely played last year, so he was pretty much in this role last year. Bad news on that end is you saw last year win in that regard. He didn't raise their ceiling all that much, but he had a lot of good excuses with him. He went through that major injury. It took him a little while to get his legs back under him. And frankly, I don't think they had all that time to set roles and do the different kind of things they want to do in practice in terms of just establishing how they want to play last year.
A lot went wrong last year. It's hard to just, again, you can't look at a player and base it on just last year because that was just such a disaster.
Yeah, and you've kicked this around, Jimmy. Like, can you run this team back? You still don't necessarily know, I think, based off last year, what that team would have been capable of if they had everything intact here. Now, obviously, your upside's limited because you can't factor in Walker being part of the fully healthy cast here. And, even if Horford plays his role great, I don't think he's necessarily a ceiling raiser. But here are the things I love about Smart going into next year. Good piece to have going into next year. Most assists of his career per game last year. Most drives of his career last year. Got to the free throw line more than ever before. Obviously kind of had a regression in terms of shooting, but he shot less overall. I feel like overall, especially early in the season, he committed to a more restrained approach and focused on getting guys the ball all over the place. I thought he managed that double big lineup well early on, the best he could. And if you look at the lineups last year that played at least 19 minutes with Smart at point guard, that double big lineup and, a weird Jeff Teague lineup out of like 8 or so were the only ones that were negative. You put him out there with Tyson Ojale, they were +6. You put him out there with Grant Thompson, they were +30. Robin Grant, +50. They put out some good lineups out there last year with him at the point. And honestly, here's my last memory last year. No one's going to remember this, but he was really good in that Nets series once Kemba went down. 23 in that game 3, I think it was, when Tatum scored 50, 10 of assists. I thought he commanded the point well in that series.
Yeah. I mean, it's the bottom line is that he just has to establish his role, play that role, and the guys around him have to react to that and respond to that appropriately and consistently. And that, to me, is again, that's
a great point, because here's my worry. If they don't extend him and he goes into the year with his contract being a thing, don't you think that undermines him in the room a little bit?
It makes it a little more. Yeah, I do think it complicates things a little bit because, when that contract doesn't get extended, it raises questions that if you're Marcus Smart and the Celtics, you don't want to be asked, but they have to. How is this going to impact his ability to lead? Because I don't think he will do anything that would jeopardize that leadership. It really becomes more about how are the guys responding and reacting to his leadership. Because I think he's still going to play hard. He's still going to do all the Marcus Smart type things out there. But is that going to be enough for those guys in that locker room to listen to him, to follow his lead, to do the things that he has done well at a high level for years when they know there's a chance that he may not be here, at the end of the season? Those are some of the issues that I know that it's, again, I think Marcus is going to be fine and he's going to do what he needs to do, but I'm not sold that the guys around him are going to do what they need to do in how they respond, respect, and have the consistency as players based upon what he brings to the table. Because he's a big part of what they're going to do next year. There's no getting around that. Their defense sucked. He's your best defender. Here's a radical thought. How about following what he does defensively and incorporate that into your game? That's kind of how this stuff typically works. That's kind of how it's worked in the past. Having Al Horford back, I think, is a huge benefit in that regard. But again, you still don't know how these guys are going to handle, Marcus being in this role where he may or may not be there the following season.
Well, I mean, he's not the first player to play on the final year of his deal. I would hope that these guys can look past that and focus on this season, because the bottom line is, when you have, Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, now you have Al Horford, Marcus Smart, a couple other guys tossed in there. Maybe you're getting some improvements from, Nesmith and whoever. Take your pick, but it's not a team that should just consider this a bridge year or a crappy year. Like these guys should be able to compete with the majority of the teams in the East. I mean, the Sixers could be worse next year if they lose Simmons and they don't get equal value or whoever they get back. Like theoretically, they could possibly be worse. We don't know what's up with Embiid.
The Celtics should be in the mix.
The East is wide open. The Celtics should be in the mix. So all this stuff about we're not going to listen to you because you might not be in the team next year. Well, who the hell knows who's going to be in the team next year? Aside from Jayson Tatum, I mean, obviously Jaylen Brown's right up there with him, but it's stupid to predict. I mean, the team could look completely different in 2 seasons. So just play your game. And listen, they don't need to be best friends, but they do need to respect each other, and they do need to trust each other on the court. They can't play with attitudes or egos and all this stuff. They need to put all those aside when you get out there on the court. Marcus Smart's talented enough to put these guys in the right positions, and he's obviously talented enough to do his thing on the defensive end. He's first team all defense player. So you're right, Sherrod. They need to buy in a little bit to what he's doing. And at the same time, Marcus Smart, if he is going to earn this point guard role, his duties need to be clear. Your job is to get these guys the ball where they need to get the ball. And if you have a lane, go for it. But that's not option number 1 for you. That's option 4.
Right.
And there's still nothing on Tatum out there. I'm keeping an eye on that. Crazy breaking news. Kawhi Leonard had surgery for a partially torn ACL.
That
in
would
LA.
explain a lot.
That's no good.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. Never heard. I had never heard of an ACL injury that didn't require surgery or wasn't some level of a tear there. So
Well, they have hyperextended knee injuries and things like that. But
the way they described it, though, ACL injury. I mean, I still don't know the kind of stuff that they were trying to play there. You always have
Yeah, I don't
teams
know what
just
they were going
sending out
for.
mixed signals on injuries, especially in the playoff series. Is a guy going to play tonight? Is he not? I think teams do that a lot, but it was always weird to me that an ACL injury was played in a way that he could have possibly returned, because now surgery is going to knock him out at least for part of next season. And there's a guy that can become a free agent opting out this year. So you might have the Clippers in a situation here where they kind of have to do that KD thing and eat part of that first year just to keep him long term. And this is tough for a guy who already was starting to deteriorate a little bit in his lower body. Had to take a lot of load management days since 2017 with that injury against Zaza, and was always kind of a guy that was dealing with something in terms of his lower body. So this isn't going to help.
No, this is just another chapter in the narrative of who Kawhi Leonard is. An incredibly talented player, a champion, and forget just multiple teams, freaking multiple countries. He's won an NBA championship.
Toronto!
And exactly. Shout out to T-Dot. So the fact that he's in a situation now where as you pointed out, Bobby, someone is going to eat a lot of a big chunk of that salary and get literally nothing in return. This is a bad
Classic
situation.
Clippers.
It really is. It really is. I mean, and part of you feels bad for Kawhi, who, let's be honest and real, he is the when they go back in history and they look at load management and they're looking for just kind of the genesis of it, you're probably going to have a picture of Kawhi Leonard not smiling as the face of load management historically. And what we found out with the Clippers is that load management, while in theory sounds good, it doesn't always work. In fact, we saw that in Boston where load management did not work. The whole point of load management is for guys to be ready to rock and roll come playoff time. Mm-hmm. When did Kawhi really pull his biggest MIA act in LA? Playoff time. When did Kemba Walker, who played in no back-to-backs all season, when was his absence most notably noticeable?
Right.
Playoffs.
It's almost like it's just so hard to tell with the knee, because you can just come down funny and it doesn't matter how much load management you have. It's the
I'm still scared after watching that Giannis play.
I can't believe Giannis
he's back
is even
scoring
playing.
40 points.
Yeah, after that I was like, oh god, we just lost another superstar now to this.
Oh yeah, that would have been the worst of the worst.
But you're right, Sherrod. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do sometimes.
Yeah, look at Sarge in Phoenix. You go back and you look at the play that he suffered his injury. It didn't look that bad. It just looked like he just kind of came down a little bit awkward, and he'll be fine. Throw some ice on that, but then you see him limping back. Yeah, you see him limping back to the locker room. It's like, oh, this is kind of serious. This is like a big deal.
So, question. So now Kawhi picks up his player option. Bobby, did the report say how much time he's expected to miss?
Our Twitter. John loves our Twitter doctors.
Yeah, I know.
Spencer Dinwiddie last year, similar injury, 7 months.
Oof.
They do a full reconstruction even for a partial tear. So there's a good chance Kawhi's out for all of next season or most of next season.
And then becomes a free agent, correct?
Yeah, so he's got a player option this summer. So he could opt out and
which is an insurance plan.
And sign a max deal, I'd say. I don't think he'll opt into that player option.
Oh, you don't think he'll just opt into it?
No, I think this guy's a superstar. He's got the Clippers.
He's gonna do the Durant thing?
He's basically the co-owner of the Clippers here. We saw what he was able to do with Paul George. So he'll opt out and he'll get a max deal and he'll get paid not to play this year.
So he's gonna pull a Durant. He's gonna pull a Durant. But okay, so
yeah. Oh man, the Clippers are screwed this year. They have no flexibility. Paul George running the show. Credit Paul George, he did a good job in the playoffs there, but the West is loaded. They're gonna have a tough time competing.
And can Reggie Jackson be Mr. November, December, January, February?
Jackson's a free agent too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a guy that not that long ago was thinking about calling it quits, and now it's like he's going to get paid well because he showed up in the biggest games that matter, and that's the playoffs.
They go after Kemba now, maybe the Clippers. They need some scoring, or
Good point. That's always been
Yeah.
a thing I felt like. Yeah,
Another
and they
knee
have
injury
some
guy.
guys to dump there. Yeah, you'd rather have a Kemba than a Beverly if Kawhi's out. So that's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
a trade that works there. Yeah, good call, Jimmy. I think we'll see
And
that
you know,
soon.
all you got to do if you're the Clippers and you're working with Sam Presti, sweeten it with a draft pick.
Do we know for sure?
Wait a second, we already have all those picks.
Do we know for sure that Kemba's even on the Thunder? I haven't heard a peep out of him or the organization since the trade happened.
The payroll, yes, he is on their payroll.
Yeah, he's on their payroll.
Now-
He's there on paper.
Now, exactly.
Has Kemba stepped foot in the state of Oklahoma yet?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get a Kemba Walker introductory press conference in Oklahoma City. I'm not so sure yet.
And I think that's okay. I mean, as long as you this is the thing about players that I've come to understand. They are less bothered by being put in crappy situations than they are not knowing the crappy situation in advance. For Kemba Walker, Oklahoma City is not where you want to be. But if, let's say, they're telling you up front that, we're going to be looking to move you, so no need to come to OKC. You're good. Do your offseason rehab and all that stuff, and we'll see what we can get done.
Yeah.
That is all players want. But if you make that trade and you say, "Oh, Kemba, we think you're going to be part of our future. We love you. Let's go and find you a place to stay," all while you're thinking, how can I flip him and get me a first-round pick? How can I flip him and get me maybe multiple picks?
Right.
That's the stuff that gets players upset because there are timelines when it's clear that organizations are looking to move you, even though everything they're saying is we're not trying to do that. I mean, look at the Ben Simmons stuff. I mean, come on. They have been open to moving him for well before he decided to pass on a wide open dunk and pass the ball to a guy that was carded. Way before that. And it's understandable because even if he were playing great, you still should have a sense of what all your players are worth throughout the league. That, to me, that's just being a good, conscious GM, understanding your value, understanding the value of your talent. So Ben Simmons, I think he's going to stay in Philly, but they are going to kick the tires around without question to see if they can get something.
Uh-oh.
I'll ask you this, and we're not going to do that whole Brown
Sherrod,
Simmons thing again.
I'm Brad
Go
Stevens.
ahead, Jimmy.
I'm Brad Stevens. I'm picking up the phone. I'm calling Philly. I'm like, hey, we're interested in Ben Simmons, or what are you guys asking for? Who are you asking for the Celtics?
Well, you want to know what the Celtics are going to want?
No, I want to know the Celtics pick up the phone and say, hey, we heard your shop and we heard you're listening to offers.
Well, if you're the Sixers, you want Jaylen Brown.
And if you're the
You
Celtics,
want Jaylen Brown.
Do you hang up immediately if you're the Celtics?
If it were me, yeah, that's a non-starter for me.
No John to back you up this time, Jimmy.
Hey, I never said I would do it. I'm just.
Here's my thing.
Would you at least have a conversation, or would you just hang up immediately?
I would absolutely have a conversation. But
okay.
listen, if they're saying, we want Jaylen, and we'll give you Ben Simmons, and then there's that awkward pause, then I'm going to say, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I think we got disconnected for a second because the only thing I heard you say was Ben Simmons.
Right.
I didn't hear anything after that. And if they're like, well, that's pretty much all we're willing to offer, then I'm like, well, listen, thanks for calling, man. I appreciate it. Next time I'm in Philly, we can get some cheesesteaks. We can kick it. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
And we're done.
Yeah.
So who do you think the Sixers can get for him if they are shopping him? I mean, I don't expect you to have a name ready. I'm just wondering, do you think they can get anything for him?
I think the ceiling for them is a guy like CJ McCollum.
Yeah,
I think that's the ceiling.
That's the one.
That's a guy that has a very clear all-star caliber skill set, a player that has a contract that, while you're not crazy about, you're giving away a contract that the team that's inheriting a non-shooting all-star starter, they're not crazy about that dynamic. And each of those players has a clear and undeniable weakness. Ben Simmons won't shoot. CJ McCollum can't defend. Okay.
Right.
But you know what else makes sense to me?
What?
They've wanted Kyle Lowry for a while.
Yeah.
Why not just flip that? Sign and trade. Toronto, kind of a low-key place for Simmons to go. Great developmental situation. I threw that at my Raptors people last week. They didn't love it. And, I don't think anyone loves the idea of Simmons right now.
Well, nobody wants Ben Simmons. listen,
Yeah.
the
I don't
only
know if
team that makes
the Sixers love the idea of Lowry either. I mean, you're getting an aging point guard, another guy that's been banged up, going to put him next to a guy like Embiid who's been banged up, and I don't know. I mean, listen, I love Lowry. I just don't know if that's the guy that I'm trying to get in return for somebody who at one point was considered a cornerstone piece here.
no, you got to do better than that.
Yeah,
You got to get better than
I
that.
just
I mean,
don't think you can bring Simmons back, though. I know they've kind of postured like they would, but I mean, we're at 3 years running now saying that Simmons and Embiid just can't work. And you've had Embiid overcompensating for him all this time, and I think it's just got to end. If you have a facilitator who can shoot like Lowry and defend a little bit, and that's the best you can do here, I think you just have to do it because you're close enough on the rest of the roster to contend. And the only reason you didn't beat the Hawks is because this guy completely melted down. And basically, in my mind, quit. The way he approached the game in these fourth quarters, he quit on this team. There's no way they can bring him back.
and this was one of the few times I've ever seen the best player and the head coach both throw a particular player under the bus. Doc Rivers in that post-game press conference made it pretty damn clear that things are ending, and basically
Doc had to duck for cover though. I mean, Doc had no choice but to take that bomb and pass
he
that flame
did.
immediately.
He did.
Listen, I'm fine with Embiid in that circumstance.
I am too, and that's the to me that's the dilemma that the Sixers are in, because you've asked people to trust the process, and the process didn't work. The process has gotten you to the second round of the playoffs? Are you kidding me? You took all those ass whippings for years, and all you got to show for it is a second round presence.
And
Are you kidding? But you want me to believe that the process works. You want me to believe that I should trust the process, and teams should seriously think about tanking because you can get a lot of really good players and they can be really good and you're going to win a lot of games. Well, it doesn't matter if you win a lot of games. What do you do in the playoffs? I'd much rather have a team that barely gets into the playoffs, that kicks ass in the postseason, than a team that wins 55, 60 games every year and then they get absolutely trounced when it matters.
But you know what, though?
Europe.
They're not the first team to tank and all that stuff. They just got more publicity for it because of the process. I mean, the Suns did something similar. I don't know how much of it was on purpose, but I mean, they had to suck for a good amount of time to put the roster together that they had. So there is value to going that route. It's risky. I mean, the Suns didn't make the playoffs last year, and now look at them now. But because they got the right piece in Chris Paul to take him to that next step. So you can't just trust the process and then expect all the guys you drafted to just fit together. You still have to bring in outside forces. So that's where they kind of fell off there in Philly. But the other thing I'll say about this is why Simmons probably has to go is because now the fans turned on him. I mean, who has his back at this point? In Philly, they can get ugly. The Philly fans can get ugly quickly. And if if he comes back for game one and it's a lot more of the same, they're going to be on him so fast that it's going to make his head spin. He won't even want to take the court. Never mind take a shot.
And I mean, if they make the decision to bring him back, I think you have to have a conversation with him and just let him know that from day one, you on the clock. You are living on borrowed time by being here right now, because the way you performed in the playoffs, the way you have just absolutely basically flashed the middle finger to the organization that kept telling you need to become a willing shooter. You don't have to be a great shooter. You don't have to be a guy that takes 25 shots. You just have to be willing to take
the shots.
an open shot.
He wouldn't take an open dunk.
He wouldn't take it. And that, to me, that was a crossroads moment for Sixers fans when they realized we can't support this. We can support the process. We're not even asking you to take a shot that might. And to me, what made it so bad was when he was asked about it afterwards, he admitted that he was truthful. I thought I was going to get fouled.
Mm-hmm.
You mean to tell me that you are so damn scared of getting fouled that you won't even take an open dunk? And I know if you're Doc Rivers, it's a good thing that we can't hear exactly what these coaches are saying or thinking in certain moments, because I guarantee you at that moment, Doc mentally, in that moment, was done with Ben. In that moment. Now, obviously, afterwards, I had a chance to reflect and think, okay, I can't really feel that way because if we wanted to trade him, I can't feel that way publicly. But damn, an open dunk. An open freaking dunk. But you're thinking about the guy who's behind you who might foul you.
I don't think Doc's
inexcusable.
I don't think he's ever coached a player that he's had to deal with that. I mean,
It's been the opposite.
Rondo didn't shoot a whole lot in the beginning of his career, but he shot a hell of a lot more, the second half of his career. But he was
playoff Rondo.
Right, and Doc was never begging Rondo to shoot. I mean, he had all these other guys.
It was a different game back then, too.
Yeah, it was a different game as well. But
and Doc had other guys who could make shots.
Right.
Philly has Embiid and sometimes Doc's son-in-law, and that's pretty much it.
Well, yeah, I mean, he had who they
Seth
just bring
Curry,
in?
Danny Green.
No,
Who
who
the
they
better
just bring
cast
in?
last year? Be supportive of
Who
him.
they just bring in last year that played awesome?
Seth Curry.
No,
Yeah.
no, small forward.
They have Harris, who's pretty good this year. Tobias Harris.
Yeah, Tobias Harris.
Tobias has been there for a while, though.
Yeah. Not that long.
He's been like 3 years.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 2 years.
He signed that max deal. They capped themselves out with a weird array of guys, but
yeah,
we want to check on Sherrod's take on this thing. We did a ton of this last week. We're not going to let Green Room dominate today, but we are doing a Green Room after this. I got one more thing I want to hit on before we get out of there, but just want to let everybody know ahead of time that you got off-season questions. If you got any leftover Olympic thoughts heading into that tournament, really anything, we're just free reign for the listeners.
Free ball in it.
Yeah.
We call it free ball.
I'm looking for John's banner here, but you know the deal. Green Room will be over there. You can hop in the room right after this. We'll probably get open pretty soon. But before we do that, I do want to get Sherrod's thought on John's master plan. And he set it in stone last week. And this goes back to what we were talking about with Smart. You bring back Smart on that expiring contract. You let him have reign over that position next year. You let Fournier go. You have a partially guaranteed deal in Horford. All of a sudden, you're looking at the different steps open here to open another max contract slot and possibly pursue Bradley Beal if he declines his player option next offseason. You had Bradley Beal opening this Olympic training camp saying, yeah, players are going to talk. There's going to be some of that tampering behind the scenes here going on. He didn't say it was going to be him, but it might be going on. So I think people are reasonably, and I think John's reasonably excited about the prospect here that the Celtics, the surest way that they could get back to contention is clearing the books here, signing Bradley Beal, and figuring it out. Get your Mario Chalmers and your Zydrunas Ilgauskises alongside those big three.
Right.
Listen.
There you go.
As much as Team USA, I love for them to win a gold medal. That is not what I'm here for. I am here for Tatum, the recruiter, not Tatum the baller. I'm here for Tatum the recruiter to set the table. It doesn't have to be guys coming in this year. It could be guys coming in 2 years from now, 3 years from now. I don't care. Set the table to get you some guys in here who can play at or close to the level that you're at so that you can be a title contender. That, to me, is what this whole Olympic experience for Jayson Tatum should be about. I like the fact that he's got a little bit of soreness that might force him to just kind of sit back and watch and not necessarily play. Because there may be some things that he's seeing out of guys that he doesn't really see or notice when he's playing against them or preparing to play against them. I look at a guy like Bam Adebayo. I don't know how they would ever get him out of Miami, but damn, I damn sure would like to see them try. I would not have an issue with them trying.
Right.
And that,
you just don't want the opposite to happen. You just don't want don't want these guys to recruit Tatum to one of their teams.
No disrespect to Bill, no disrespect to Washington, but the idea of Tatum being open to the process of playing for the Izzards. Because there are no W's in Washington right now. It is about being an Izzard.
The Lizards.
I just don't see him being moved in that direction. Now, are there some other players? Yeah, and are there some other teams that might have some interest in him going to their spots? Yeah, and if you're Tatum, you want to listen to everybody and what they got to say because your mindset is, I have to do this in order for them to listen to what I have to say. In order for them to understand why they should rock with me. It's not like Celtics are an organization that hasn't shown the ability to elevate the organization in terms of deep playoff run in a short amount of time. They've done that. You got a guy like Udoka who is with you every single day this summer. You better believe there's a conversation that those guys are having every single day about team building, about staying in shape, about his role next year, about just the way he goes about doing his thing on the floor. Udoka is going to have the benefit of knowing his star player better than most first-time coaches will know their star players having never coached them before. That I think we're going to see them two being on and have a certain level of connectivity from day one. That's going to surprise a lot of people. But when you look at the genesis of that, it's going to be right now with Team USA, and with that connection, others are going to see that connection, and they're maybe asking some questions. And then Tatum, the pitch man, has to be better than Tatum, the leader of Team USA.
Yeah,
I don't care if he scores 2 points a game. Get Bradley Beal on the hook for 2 years. Get Bam Adebayo to start thinking about what am I going to do when my current contract is up? Where is Boston somewhere I want to go?
Like it's up there, yeah.
If Tatum convinces Bam Adebayo to leave South Beach and come to Boston, then he can convince anybody in the
Greatest
world
recruiter of all time.
Yeah, best recruiter of all time. So I listen. I love that thought. I'm just not going to hold my breath. But
do not hold your breath, Jimmy, because I want you to live. So do not hold your breath on that one.
The Tatum Beal connection is very real. To a lesser extent, Beal being coached by Udoka, maybe he likes the way he coaches her. They have some nice conversations, not about coming to Boston, but just whatever it is, conversations that they have going on over there. Maybe he takes a liking to the coach. I mean, that's important too. So it's all good things, but there is that very real possibility, just based on the way the friendship is lined up, the way the contracts are lined up, where Beal is, I think what John said last year, it's like this is pretty much their only chance to play together if they ever wanted to, right? Because of the way Beal will be a free agent, he'll lock into a max deal, and he'll be wherever the hell he signs with, and it doesn't really line up for these two guys after that. So this is a real opportunity if it's something that they had laughed about, growing up or as kids. And then the second thing of that would be the other aspect of not making big moves this offseason, and what I think John said and what we kind of agreed with was you find out one way or the other if the guys you have are worth keeping around.
Those young guys that John loves.
Right. So it could go really badly, or you might find out that Neesmith can play, that Romeo actually can play if he's healthy, and that Rob's a guy that they absolutely have to find a way to hang on to. You might learn all those things this year by giving them a bigger role. So you're not really saying it's not it is a bridge year, but it's not like it doesn't at least have to be like the worst possible year. On the contrary, if they all end up sucking and they can't play, then you're really struggling, and you hope that you don't frustrate Tatum and Brown even more so than they were this year. And then maybe Beal's like, damn, you guys suck. I don't even want to play in Boston. And, it could go south very quickly. Is it worth that risk? I mean, I think it probably is worth that risk. I mean, if you know that you need a third star to come in here anyways, why not take that risk? Because otherwise, you're just going to you're going to handcuff yourself. You're going to sign a guy like Fournier, sign a guy like Smart, and now you can't do anything.
This is what I've said all along. You need Tatum to come back from these Olympics. And this is what worries me about this. We're seeing again and again, Tatum's largely a hands-off guy. Now, maybe it's different behind the scenes, and he's actually working things out with Beal here and having these conversations. But on the outside, it looks like Tatum's a pretty hands-off guy when it comes to how he views this coaching decision, personnel moves on the Celtics, his role, other people's role. He just doesn't get all that involved on things. So is he even having this conversation with Beal? I'm not punting on this offseason unless Tatum comes back and you have some sense that Beal would at least think about opting out of that deal next year and going to Boston. Because if you're passing up on other opportunities now, I think that's very dangerous. And you could end up in a spot where you have a fifth free agent in a row walk for nothing in Fournier, and then next year have a sixth free agent in a row walk for nothing in Marcus Smart. So I'm not thrilled about this plan. I'm just not certain.
You're not going to put Fournier in the same category as Kyrie and Horford and Hayward, are you? I mean,
no, but I mean, it's just another guy that leaves for nothing.
Yeah, okay, but the difference would be they wanted it that way. The difference would be the Celtics were like, see you later, thanks for.
So is Beal?
I mean, is this something Beal would consider doing? I would put Fournier in the same category as Evan Turner, a guy that had options, that what he was able to get money-wise was beyond what you're willing to pay.
Yeah,
you could say that.
But I mean, once you start going in a different direction, I mean, obviously you have a different GM at this point. It is what it is. It's just kind of a sunk cost, those second rounders and
Right.
Going back to Hayward,
what?
TP, and
You
that kind of
re-sign him
stuff.
you re-sign him just so you can say we didn't lose it for nothing, but now you're stuck with a guy making $18 million a year for the next 3 years, and nobody really wants him enough at least for you to clear your cap, and now you're not a player for Beal, and you find out that Beal probably would have came to Boston. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe you piss off Tatum because now Tatum knows that it's not going to happen.
You just need some level of confidence that you're going to be in play here, and I'd imagine they'll find out some way to figure out that whether that's true or not.
I would think that they would feel that they have a chance.
I think so too. How do you feel about that, Sherrod?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that they feel that they'll be in the mix, but it really just comes down to, do they want to go there?
Yeah.
Do they feel that they can go there and still have some of that nimbleness from a cap standpoint that they're looking for? Obviously, they're not going to be as flexible as they'd want to be, but can you still make that move and still make another decent, adequate team building type decision / move that's going to help you? Because, I mean, as much as we talk about this being kind of like a bridge year, this team, they're still trying to put together something that's going to compete for a championship. Right. And they know they're not there, but they know that's what separates cities like Boston and teams like the Celtics.
Yeah, everyone can feel good about it at least.
Yeah.
So Sherrod, that's a good point, and we had texted about this earlier, is that in order to create that cap space, you need to let Fournier go. You need to let Smart go. Correct, Bobby?
Yeah.
You need to get rid of Horford.
Yep. You'd either cut him and eat that $14 million or trade him somewhere.
And then you allow yourself to re-sign Rob. Is that correct? Does that give you the space to do it? Because we want to make it clear. At least me and John want to make it clear. We want to make this deal happen without getting rid of Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could potentially keep Rob, and luckily I don't think Rob's going to be a guy in the next year or so who's going to break the bank in terms of his offers on the open market.
Well,
but
when he makes the All-Star team next season, he will.
You could
Damn, Jimmy with the scolding hot take there. Okay.
If he can stay healthy, who knows?
I think
through the building.
Damn it.
Well, listen, you can't make the All-Star team on the bench.
I think if you dumped Horford in fall next offseason, you would squeeze out enough space to hold on to Rob's restricted rights. So at that point, obviously, you'd be in a much more advantageous spot to keep him.
Right.
Smart,
which is worth it. Which is worth
Smart,
it, by the way.
Yeah, it would be, because you want a guy like that who can move the ball and protect the rim and do those different things with the wings. Because frankly, I think you're going to be weak on the boards with that kind of core and be weak in ball movement to some degree, depending on who your point guard is. Probably won't be Smart. Smart's going to have a $21 million cap hold. He'll probably have decent offers on the open market next offseason. And unless he really just wants to stay with this team and make minimum money, which I can't see, he's out of here in this scenario.
I got yelled at for yelling at you for that take last week, so I'm gonna let you.
That's the only way. That's the only way.
Is if Marcus Smart takes a veteran minimum just to play in the Celtics, Sherrod.
With Beal, Tatum, and Brown, again, he didn't get paid the way he wanted to last time, so I don't see it.
Yeah, no, and he shouldn't. No. Here's the thing about Marcus, and really this goes for all NBA players. I mean, you only get a certain window of time to maximize your earning potential, and if you're Marcus Smart, you need to make the most of that when the time to strike is there, and this is that time. So. I hope he gets paid. I hope he gets a big payday, because he's put in the work to earn that right to do that. And anyone who suggests that he should stick around and make minimum wage just to play with
minimum wage is different. That's $7.25.
He should. All relative.
Well, anyone who suggests he should make less than his fair market value just to stick around, I think that's a problem. I think that's a big problem. So.
And that goes for anything in life, Don't discount yourself, man.
Exactly,
I think
Jimmy.
A lot of teams on that open market would want Smart too. So that's something they'll have to contend with there. You would have a lot of roster spots on that team to be filled by minimum guys, and you'd really, in my mind, be looking like that Miami Heat team. And I was looking at the roster again from that year: Mike Bibby, Chris Anderson. Those types. That's the kind of Celtics team you'd be looking at with this level of a big three here, along with those young guys. And that is the key, as John points out. can Romeo get involved at a higher level this year? Neesmith certainly would have to become a starter on that kind of team, or a near, a 6-man kind of guy. And you'd have to find a stopgap center somehow. Luckily, next free agent class is pretty loaded, so maybe there would be a handful of guys that would play on a super team like this. But again, I'd be concerned at how thin this team would be.
Yeah, you got to get more bang out of those low money rookie contract players if you're the Celtics as you put this thing together, because that's really where the really good teams are at. They get more bang for the buck than most teams. That's
right.
what separates.
I mean, that's why it's so important to hit on a couple of these. I mean, again, you don't need to draft an all-star every year, but if you can draft a guy that you can actually keep for those 4 years on a rookie year deal, I mean, that's how you fill out the roster and make a move like this happen, where you're like, okay, well, we're not like skeleton thin after, our first 4 guys. We at least have, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 deep. We can come off the bench here. But that's the important thing. And again, they don't have the draft pick this year, at least in the first round, so you're not expecting much. But maybe our guy Yamadar can crack the rotation. Who knows? But they're going to have to find guys who want to play. Again, it goes back to veterans who want to come in and play with these players helps a ton too. If you look at the Nets, the players that they were able to acquire and ultimately fell short due to injuries. But I mean, are you going to get to that level where there are going to be guys that are towards the end of their career that are looking for a championship or looking for some sort of role in a winning team? Because that's the only way you're going to get those deals that you're looking for Smart to take is guys that are going to come in and take a 1-year deal and maybe take a little bit less than they would for the Orlando Magics of the world or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk with this route. At least it would give you a long-term window to get to that point, though. You'd have a couple years where different guys who are being cast off would probably keep joining this team, because you look at the Nets last year, they lost, but they still have a situation there where guys are going to still want to join going forward.
Oh, definitely.
You'll probably have Blake hop back on board. You'll probably have other veterans who are cast away. Who knows? Maybe Kevin Love breaks loose at some point and he wants to go there. You're going to have different guys that want to do it over multiple years there, and you'd have a very long window with Beal, Tatum, and Brown on max deals. It's just I do think you need good role players and good glue guys to bring a team like that together. And I don't know if the young guys on this team are good enough to step into those kind of roles when it comes to that. So that's my only problem with that plan.
Here's the thing. You
what else are you going to do?
If you can get Beal, you get Beal, and you figure out the little pieces later. You don't build the role players in first and then try to fit your superstar around them. You just get the big guns and, like you said, fill it out. The buyout season. You do what you can.
Yeah, it's just 3 scorers, 3 wing guys. The burden of ball handling and playmaking is going to be on them. Are they going to defend at the highest level at that point? But again, you're right. 3 stars, it's hard to pass that up. And again, I have some alternative ideas, but I don't know if they'll be available. So my Lowry plan and the Brogdon plan that you like and things like that, who knows if that's going to be possible this offseason or if those teams even want to move on from those guys. So we'll keep an eye on everything. We got Olympics starting late next week, opening ceremonies. We have the Summer League starting August 6th. Quite a few Celtics that and love are going to be out there in Vegas. So those things are coming up fast here over the next couple of weeks. We missed Joe Sway. We missed John, some of us tonight. So we'll catch up with them again next week. Good to catch up with Sherrod this week. We got NBA Finals, a couple more games here. Been enjoying Giannis. Still one of the best playoff runs I've seen as he bounces back from this knee injury and keeps killing it out there. And maybe we'll be willing to turn the series around. So we'll jump over to Green Room now. We'll hit on all of that. We'll give you about a half hour over there. The link is out. It is in the chat. We can repost that again. I'm about to tag it here. So we'll jump right over to there. We'll let you in. We'll have your calls. Globe, Gary Washburn, something I want to hit on over there. Jayson Tatum talking about the team a little bit with Washburn at Team USA.
G-Dub.
That was a good interview. Some interesting stuff in there, especially when it comes to Beal. So I'll hit on that over at Green Room. Come join us. Come give your thoughts on that and everything else. Sherrod jumping over us for a little bit there. Jimmy, probably give about a half hour over there. So come join us. Come chat. And we will see you next week here on the Garden Report.
Peace.